Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Mik'd podcast. I'm Mike, a hairdresser of over 20 years. One of the best parts of my job is the conversations that I get to have with all of my clients. We talk about anything and everything and invite you to listen in as we get mic'd up for today's conversation. On this episode, we have Emma in the chair. Emma is a hairdresser and a personal lifestyle coach, but she had to go through a few hurdles to get to where she is today. Sit back and hear her story of what made her the amazing woman she is today. Enjoy. How are you?
So good. So good.
So happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, yes. Happy to be sitting, getting my haircut, being the client,
Dude,
not the hairdresser today.
I'm so happy you're here. I've honestly been really thinking about what to talk to you about and what to do, but the one thing that I keep coming up with, because I've known you for,
I know, how long?
It's been
how long?
10 years at least, maybe?
Yeah.
Has it been that?
Maybe eight.
8 years? But the thing that I think with you is how far I've watched you and your life come, as far as like, I know your history, and that's what, like today I want to kind of go into like, let's talk about where you've come, where you were, and then where you are now, because right now, you're one of the most positive, happy people that I know. Like you really do have this outlook on life that just makes it seem so simple.
It is, really.
But I don't know. I want to know what your secret is and why you have gotten a hold of life in such a positive way from coming where you were. So let's start with, give me kind of your history. Where did you start out? What's the beginning of your Emma's story?
Emma's story. I love that. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I am so stoked for you. I just want to say that first.
Okay.
Because I think like you just starting this project, like you wanted to do it, and like here it is, it's happening. And so hell yeah, props to you.
Thank you.
And where do I start my story? Where does Emma start?
Yeah, like where did you, like, let's just start out with like childhood. Where did you grow up? What was your early childhood like?
I grew up all around Utah. I lived with my mom and my sister, and we moved around quite a bit, all around Utah, all elementary schools, different middle schools, different high schools, which is kind of crazy to think about, just being in like always transition, I guess I would say. But
what did you move around so much for? Like jobs, was it? My
family, we have a history of alcohol addiction and drug addiction and all the things of that nature. And so because of that, it's like we just, I don't know, we went with the flow. Like, my mom was a single mom and she raised us, and we've kind of just went through, we just had each other. And I come from, like, going back to that, like, I come from a history of that lifestyle, and, making it out of that has been one of my greatest, like, teachings in life, and I wouldn't change it.
So then, like, well, I'm gonna ask this question because I'm just curious. Like,
yes.
Having not been in an alcoholic family, like, I don't know what. So would your mom just drink all the time? Like, was it at certain points? Like, explain to me, like, an alcoholic.
So my
lifestyle.
dad, he was a heroin addict, so he wasn't around. Okay. And my mom, she was, I would say, functioning alcoholic. Like, she killed it. Like, she raised us. She had 3 jobs, and but it was, definitely just, yeah, being raised in a home with kind of, what would I say? Like, the stability was kind of unknown.
Okay.
So from there, it's like being in a home, I don't know, like it was positive and safe, but more, I don't know if that makes sense. Like it was a part of my lifestyle when I was younger.
Okay.
And so it was always around, always kind of like, you know.
So do you feel like you just kind of picked that up? That was just kind of like, hey, this is a normal.
For sure. Like my parents were like, don't ever drink, don't ever do this. And I'm like, I was like that child that was like, well, I got to figure out this on my own. So definitely started that into a young age. And
so at what age do you feel like, what do you remember when you took your first drink?
yes. Yeah, I was 12. Super young.
And was it just like, hey, I'm just tasting it, or was it like, hey, we're
Oh no, it was
really
like
taking this down?
Oh yeah, me and my sister, like, we totally drank and all the things.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so it's that's part of my story for sure.
Okay. So you started out, you were young, you were under this, like, that was just kind of a normal day. It's like, hey, there's alcohol in the house, we're drinking,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So.
Or our friends would get it for us. My mom never got it for us, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, what 12-year-old has friends that are like, hey, you want me to get you some?
Living in Payson, Utah, I will tell you that.
That's pretty much what happens.
Oh, yeah.
So you get, okay, you have this normal lifestyle, or not normal, but like this is your normal.
To me, yeah.
So at what age did it really become a problem for you?
Yeah. So I really got into like heavier drugs when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 until I went to rehab.
Okay.
I went to rehab when I was 16, and that was when my dad like owned a treatment center. And I went for a couple months, and that was my first time ever like being off a substance. So yeah, from like 12 to 18, it was kind of like a free for all.
So, but alcohol was the first?
No,
Like
I would say alcohol was the first, yeah.
Okay.
It was, yeah. And from there, everything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at 18, you went into rehab.
Yep, I went to rehab.
Coming out of rehab, was it like clean? Like you're done? Like you never touched it again? Or was, because I know some people going into rehab, it's like multiple times over, but depending on the substance that you're addicted to or whatever. So like, was it just a one and done, or was it like?
So I believe I went to rehab 3 times, but what really brought me out of it was me getting pregnant. Silas. Like Silas changed everyone's life. Like my mom stopped drinking. I completely changed my life. Like he was the light to everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, were you planning Silas? Was this like?
Definitely not.
Okay.
No.
So this is like a happy accident that's like.
This is like, hey. Sean and I are having the best time of our lives. And then, okay, we're having a baby.
So you knew you were going to have a baby, and then what? Like.
I just knew that I was like, there's no way that I would ever like go through that experience of like, I just felt like I wanted to always be a mom, you know, like I wanted to be a mom. That was my most important, like, calling, and it just felt aligned. And, yeah, like it just allowed me to also be completely off everything for 9 months. And so I actually knew what it was like to live without a substance in my body.
Okay. So you did stay off while you were pregnant.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so Silas is born,
Yep.
and then where do you go from there?
So I jumped into doing hair. I was like, well, I went to go to college before I went to rehab, and I was like, oh, I gotta go to college. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with my life. And then it didn't really work out in college in St. George. It was like party central still. And so I came back and I was like, I'm just gonna start hair school. Like my grandpa, he's a barber. He's been a barber since he was 17, and he's like 80, and he's still cutting hair. And from there, I just jumped into doing hair, and then like being a mom, and that's like my whole world. And so, I was really heavily involved in NA.
What's NA?
NA is it's Narcotics Anonymous, so it's like a group of people meet once a week, twice a week, every day. Like a lot of people go to meetings, and that is like they teach you to have a higher power. They teach you to have community, and that really transformed a lot of who I am today. Like I sponsored like 10 women and helped them in their journey, and worked at the steps, and you do like step work.
Okay. Like the 12-step program.
The 12-step program, okay. Yeah. So that was definitely, what would you say, like just a rock in my life of kind of creating who I am and getting me through to whatever was next.
Okay. So then as far as like, hair school, let's start, like, did you find happiness, peace, like in doing hair? Like what was it that kept you into that? 'Cause
I would say what kept me into doing hair, I was really good at it.
Okay.
I'm going to just say that. And I just enjoyed it. And, I mean, I love like connecting with people, and like I always wanted to be like a therapist and an architect, but they kind of come together as, being in art, doing art for hair, and being a therapist for people, and like being someone that, they can talk to about their whole freaking life for 10 years straight,
That is true. People really do just, well, that's the whole reason for this project and this podcast this is the part of hair that I think a lot of people miss out on because they're either too busy or there's just, I think for me, this is the one part that I love more than anything is the conversation, trying to figure out what people's stories are and understand where they come from.
Yeah.
So you kind of went through, a rough upbringing, to say the least. Then you had your kid, found hair. Like, where does the switch come that, you talked about like with Silas, like that was kind of like a big, but there's a thing with your, like now, you're very much, life is just easy. And even with the kid and going through NA and doing all these things, like there's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things that can be overwhelming to some. So how do you go to that point of like, were you overwhelmed at all during that time? Were you stressed to the max? Because I think that's about the point where our paths kind of cross is like,
yeah.
And even from the time that I knew you, like there was a lot of stuff still going on to where you are now. So what's life like? You got the one kid at the time.
Yeah.
Going through stuff. You're in hair school. How's life treating you at that point?
It was like, I would say like Sean and I lived in this cute little apartment in Spanish Fork, and our rent was like $700 a month, and like life was just so easy. Like he started out his tech, like getting into tech, and I was really just like booming into like, I mean, I was working behind the chair a lot, and I felt like it was easy though. Like it was so fun. Like the salon that I worked at, they provided so much education, and I went all around, and like I worked for Aveda, and I traveled, and I got to do both. Like I got to be a mom, but I also got to build my career, and really at that time, I felt like I was really devoted to just what's like the precision of hair, right? Just learning everything about hair. And yeah, and then we moved closer. We moved to Orem, and then at the salon that I was working at, I was just dying. Like I was working back to back. Like I was not feeling happy. Like I was working in the mall, and I was terrified to leave. Terrified. Just like, how am I ever gonna, what else am I gonna do? And I just remember coming and interviewing with you, and I was like so nervous. I'm like, I gotta do this. Like I gotta be on my own. And I was thinking of that day when I walked in here today, and I remember like Sean and I went to lunch, and I was like, I got to like, I posted a picture of us because we went and had Thai food, and I was like, I get to be my own boss, and I get to have lunch whenever the hell I want. And I was like, this is so great. But getting up to that, like leading up to that, it's like trusting yourself to take the next step of like evolvement, I think, right? And like abundance, and like what's provided people, like matching vibrations. And so I was just ready for something new, and then I got to start here.
So, but then, because there was a shift as well, like you were doing hair all the time, like going crazy, and then you ended up finding, I think, I don't know, I feel like your pathway, like you still do hair, and you're still really talented at it, but you also found something else.
Yes.
And what was that?
Yes. So, let's see. I would say like around 2020, we all went, right? Yeah. Back into our like hibernation, all the things. Yeah. Like, what the hell is happening to our world? And my anxiety, like I have anxiety and depression diagnosed, whatever the hell that means, but it's like I got back into a cycle of that, and it just was like, what can I find? What is next for me? And I really like dived into like my yoga practice, and stepping into like meeting new people, and then I hired a coach. And she taught me all about microdosing and like healthy living and loving yourself and knowing your value. And at the time I was just like hustling, trying to like work so much to like live. And at the end of the day, it was like, what can you do to make life more fun? Like, how can you make, how can you connect with people more so than just having a job? And so, I changed up. I started doing like a coaching business, and getting into more like centered living and more, what's even the word, like spiritual, like living. I invited that into my life, and
so
spiritual
living, like,
yeah.
This is gonna sound stupid, but like it's not like religious based, like spiritual, like you're not, is it like more like seeing a higher power, like not what people would say is a god or something, but is it more like Mother Earth type stuff, or?
Yeah, I would say Mother Earth, Pachamama, like all the connection to the universe, the divine. I wasn't raised in any religion. And so for me, like I've always kind of just created what my higher power is. And it's worked for me in that way, to leaning into spirit and what feels right.
So then here, you met with your coach, and your coach taught you about like microdosing and stuff like that. So does it worry you, or did it worry you as far as like being a former drug addict? Like, hey, I'm going to use drugs in a sense to find inner peace. Like, does that make sense?
No, yeah, I get you. I think it was more so of there's that huge dilemma around it, right? Because yeah, it's technically a drug right now.
Yeah.
But I hope at one point that it's like a expansion for others, and like to open up the world. And there's so many studies now. But that was definitely something I had to move through on my own, to trust and to really, it's like, I hope that answers that question, just more so in a way of, yeah, I had to move through that kind of fear on my own to trust myself more. And it's really not even about the microdosing, right? It's like more so about what I've learned from that, and doing like ayahuasca and going to the jungle and doing that outside of the US. Like I learned so much more about myself, of it being like, you are the medicine. You are who you're creating, right? And so, yeah, I had to move through that to trust the path that was brought to me, just as much as I had to when I was younger, I would say, right? Like I didn't die when I was younger, and it brought me to learn so much about myself. And yeah.
So in the you are the medicine, like the stuff, because when you're talking microdosing, is it like shrooms? Is it LSD? Is it MDMA? Is it like all of the above? Like
All of the above. No, it's microdosing, meaning like there's so much knowledge behind it. And, I won't go into as much of, because obviously I'm not condoning it to anyone,
Yeah.
and it's illegal. But it's like the knowledge behind it, and just knowing that it's a tool, and that if it's called to you, that it's meant for you.
Well, there's so much research on it now, though. Like it should be legal. Like,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But like,
I agree.
It's one of those things that I think when it was outlawed in the 60s, it was because people were using it in the wrong setting or the wrong process. But now there's studies behind it that show that it's actually improved, PTSD. It's improved, I was listening to something the other day, and it was talking about how microdosing may have signs of helping Alzheimer's, like because it sparks something in the brain to do magical things. But so I think, if there's a benefit, and if it's used in a proper way, like there can be huge, significant changes in people, which that's where you come in.
Yeah.
Because it has made a difference, but
It's really just awakened. It's awakened me to really just be grounded in my body and in my life, and to connect with people. And
well, but for somebody that hasn't done something like that, because you use the phrase like you are the drug, like do you feel like it? I mean, it does something to kind of like open the mind or whatever, to where you can process, or you can accept, or I don't know what the word would be, to like, you can basically experience life.
Yeah, it
in
makes
a
your
way?
brain more flexible.
Okay.
And so it's like a little bit of like a miracle grow for your brain.
So in the process of like you being the drug, it's basically switching your brain so that you can now accept life as is. Is that, or
Yeah,
accept
it's
life
like-
in the moment kind of a thing?
It's like, I think that it just can teach you so much about yourself and your life that you are the medicine, meaning like who you are, how your energy shows up, how you take care of yourself. Like you are whole without any outside circumstances, outside needs, outside of anything.
So do you feel like it was like going through the coaching and the microdosing and that type of stuff where you really figured that out?
Yeah, it's been a 2-3 year, always even going currently, like, of discovery of, I think going to ayahuasca was definitely a big eye opener for me.
How so? Like, how was it a big eye opener?
Because I think I lived my life on autopilot. I felt as though I lived on autopilot, right? It's like we can get into those mundane routines of like autopilot and not find purpose. And I feel like after that, I found purpose to show up every day, no matter what. And to like what you think about is what you create, right? And so I spent a lot of years living in my mind and being a victim to my life. And it just taught me that the past really doesn't even exist. It's like today is today. And like whatever you create moving forward is what you get to bring to the world.
Okay.
So that's what really just opened my eyes and dropped me into my body and my experience and taught me to love myself way more than I was.
So then how do you now, because now you've stepped into that coaching position.
Yep. Yeah.
So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm looking for help,
What does that look like?
Yeah, what does that look like?
So we, typically I like to work with people for 3 months and we meet every week and it's like we drop into whatever the client needs, like what their focus is, and what it looks like is me being a mirror for them, right? Like me being the mirror for their growth. And that's why I love it so much, because I really only work with clients that are drawn to me like automatically, and then everything just falls into place.
Is there a pretty common, like, do you find that, I don't even know is there a commonality, like most people are looking for the same thing, or is there like a wide variety? Like what are people looking to not fix, but change or address?
I think that there's a wide variety between people struggling with anxiety, depression, purpose, big life decisions, things of that nature. I think, it's like I'm just being a guide for them to really tap into learning more about themselves and then kind of taking control of their lives. Like we drop into a lot of like self practices, like healing practices, like journaling, meditation, mirror work. I have like a 3-month program that I've written, and that we just go every week through everything. So a wide variety.
What do you think is the? Because I mean, I'm looking at it from outside. I've never gone through coaching type stuff like that, but like, I think, well, I don't know if this is I'm speaking from a man's perspective. it sounds to me like it would be something that would be like I would have to be really vulnerable.
Extremely
as far as
vulnerable.
like really letting my guard down. So for people that are, do you find like that's a difficult thing for people, is to like get them out of this, like you're gonna do some things that are gonna be a little odd or a little weird for you, but just trust the process? Or
A lot of things that we start with is like we do a lot of breath work. But no, I don't feel so, because if you're called to work in that kind of container with somebody, it naturally flows. Like, that's the beautiful thing about working with people who are ready to experience what they need to and want to experience. But I would say yes, it's like it's very vulnerable. People are talking about really deep, challenging things in their life. But I always go back to the phrase of like, when I was in NA, it was like one addict helping another, right? And that still sticks with me, but it's like one person helping another. It's like if one person can just connect with another and be that support for them, that's what coaching is.
that's wild.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, I guess, so now you're going through, you coach people, you help them out. Does that bring, obviously, I'm sure that's got to help. It's the same as I would look at talking with a client, or like really, when a client really opens up and tells you their deepest story, like there's a lot of joy that comes from, one, people trusting you enough to say, I'm going to share my little inner world with you.
Yeah.
Do you find happiness helping people in that sense? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say that it helps me connect more like on my spiritual path of like, you know, we're here to experience life, but also like to really experience life and to really connect deeper with people. It brings me a lot of joy. And it also helps me be a better me. Like, it's just, you know, like all working together. It's like a full circle.
what I was going to say, like, when you're now working on clients, they're not necessarily like health coach, like if you're working on hair clients, so you're doing hair or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you ever have people that you're like, you know what you could use?
Yes.
Like, and how do you bring that up? Like, is that a conversation for?
Not typically. I think that I'm more of like a guide with what has helped me, and then, you know, then they can kind of like my hair clients. You know, even the other day we went into like a whole session of like stuff. It was great. Like I can do a session of coaching and do hair at the same time. It's like, it works both ways. But I don't think people have to be ready for the type of healing that like I offer in the coaching, you know, and they have to be the ones that are guiding to jump into it.
So what happens if they're not ready? Like, can you tell that somebody's not ready for it, and you're like,
And they still want to do it?
yeah.
Oh, well then if they still want to do it, they're ready. Because you can do something scared. You know, like unknown. You can still jump into something unknown and...
But I mean, have you ever had to like say, well, let's work on this first, get you right in this way,
Absolutely.
and then we'll jump down that path.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's just
Like
crazy.
starting with breath work and like a lot of meditation and because if you don't want to do the work, it's really hard to have someone connect within themselves.
So I think the crazy is like having the childhood that you've had, and then I mean, like it's not. I mean, yeah, I don't know, but it seems that having a childhood where things are brought so drastic, like it's rare for somebody to come out the other end on top and basically be now a positive influence, because it was such a difficult, crazy time as a child, like getting to that point now where, you know, you've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
Like, what's the secret?
I think just being willing to be willing to be willing to be willing to do whatever it takes to show up in your life and to like change patterns. I think that it's like, when I think back, it's like my mom, and I've heard this before, and maybe it's not like true to everyone, but it's like, we do better than our parents did, than their parents did, than their parents did. We're all trying to evolve and just create something fantastic, like amazing and healing, right?
So do you think that's a motivation to you? Is like you want to be better than what your parents were?
No, because I think that we're all so unique, right? We all have a different experience, and I would never say like everything about my childhood, even though like my mom was freaking kick ass, like no matter what. And even with like my dad, like he's homeless still, and I've learned so much from them, and like I honor their journey as much as mine, and it brought me to who I am today too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard thing to get to like actually be confident enough in saying that I can respect what they've done. I can respect where they are.
Absolutely.
I can have, you know, understanding of that, and because of it, I'm the person I am today.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So then what's like, now do you have like what's your daily practices? Like, what do you do on a daily basis to just try to keep that up and to keep that mindset of life is as it is and life is great?
So there for a while, I was like, has to be routine. And I'm guessing more than anything, when the kids get back into school, I'm back to the routine. Like, got to get up at 6 a.m., you know? Like, and the reason for that is like, I really would like 5, but we'll get there. 5 and 6, those hours, when the kids are still asleep, you have so much time to set the tone for your day. And so for me, like a perfect day would look like waking up at 5, taking my time, making some tea, journaling, meditating, stretching, doing some yoga, and setting my intention for the day, right? Like choosing today and having the present moment and thinking about who I get to connect with, like just bringing in that energy so I can take it throughout my day. Right now it's summer. I still am meditating. I'm still, you know, having my tea and doing my yoga, but it's definitely more on like a flow basis.
Okay.
Those are my daily practices for sure. And then at night, I always take a bath and journal and read and try to get into nature.
This is going to be a weird, maybe not a weird question, but like when it comes to journaling,
Yeah.
are you writing just like, here's what the day entailed, here's what we did, or is it like, what do you journal? Because I think there was only about a 2-year period of my life where I actually kept a journal, and it was just, I felt like it was really redundant because it was just like, got up, went to, did this, saw this person, said hello. Like, it was like, nobody's gonna want to read this. Like, so when you're journaling, is it more journaling for like you to read later on, or is it like your history of like, here's what I did?
It typically varies. Actually, it varies a lot. Currently, the way that I'm journaling is kind of just like what I would talk to my therapist about, right? Or just affirmations for myself, like my struggles throughout the day that I struggle with, what I overthink about. But typically it's all really positive, right? Like if I can just drop into like fueling my soul in the evening before I go to bed, like it's golden. And I don't overthink it. Like I just pick up the pen and I just write. What helps me too is like turning on a song, just like 2 songs, and I'll just write whatever comes up for the next 2 minutes. And there's so many ways to just incorporate a journal practice, and thinking of it as a practice, right? Like thinking of it as something that you are making time for, but really not overthinking it too much.
But there's no like, I guess that like no, okay, today I'm going to journal about.
Yeah, what do you want to journal about?
Yeah, like, I don't know, like that's the thing.
What
like,
if you did know?
I would need like a journal that has like, write about this. And I'd be like, okay, I can write about this.
Yeah, and it's like starting, right? It's just about starting.
But like the idea of just like sitting down and writing, I think I would sit there blank and be like, I don't know, like, and go back to what, again, this is my childhood being raised, like, when you journal, it's just write your day. Like, and so it's like almost like a planner, like, woke up at 6, ate breakfast. Today I had eggs and bacon. Like, it's just stupid stuff. Like, but.
I write a lot of like poetry too.
Okay.
And just whatever comes up. And I can look back and it does help me sometimes. Just kind of tracking my moods and where I'm at in my life.
But it's not ever like I remember going to therapy and my therapist was like, I want you to write a letter to your younger self. Like, and so you'd sit down and it was like I had a purpose of writing. Like, I'm going to write a letter to my younger self.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to do that. But like, I don't know. I think the idea of journaling, but I guess I just want to know what the purpose is. It just to let.
I think it's like to release energy. I don't know. This is how my brain works about it. It's like, I think that we have a lot of thoughts like all through the day and stresses. And for me, it's just to really ground back into what I'm cultivating, who I'm creating to be. And so for me, the purpose is to do it for myself.
Okay. So if you could give people that are listening a suggestion, like for somebody that maybe does have anxiety or stress, or somebody that is, interested in just making a daily change, or like what would be your one bit of advice that you would say, start here, or start with this, or change, like what would be your, what is the starting point that you would suggest people take?
I would say, I would just say that really acknowledging where, like having the ability to acknowledge where they are, right? And so if they could just have that perspective of where they currently are in their life and give themselves grace. Like, you don't have to figure everything out in one day. but also like you're allowed to be more gentle with yourself. Because I think people struggling with anxiety, depression, it's really hard on your mind and you can't really get out of it. But if you can just allow more grace and kindness to yourself, like trusting that the next thing's coming for you, you know, the next good thing, the next practice, and just trusting. That's what I would say.
All right. I mean, it's way easier said than done. I
know,
think,
right? Or simple, go for a cold plunge. Reset, like tap into like nervous system techniques. Like that's one of my things that I've really had to come back to, is managing my nervous system.
And a cold plunge obviously reboots everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What about diet? Because you eat very, very healthy, don't you?
I eat both ways. But yes, I do. I typically, it's like, it's lots of fruits and vegetables and water. Lots of water.
You know there's water in Diet Dr. Pepper.
Duh.
So I can drink as much of that as possible, right? It's like the number one ingredient.
I used to say that when I was 18. I would drink Americanos. Like I would get like 3 or 4 a day. And I'd always just be like, there's water in Americanos. That's what is the base.
So it's good for me.
It's good.
Oh, man. I get people all the time telling me I need to cut back on my Diet Dr. Pepper intake, but I love it.
Start
I know
somewhere,
it's bad.
right? Add water.
Maybe that's what I change. Maybe that's where I'll start. I'll just be like, all right, I'm going to go and give this little joy juice a
little sip.
A sip. Oh, man. Well,
I'm obsessed. I can't wait to like have this and live with this haircut. It's so good.
Oh, man. Well, is there anything else that, because as we're finishing here, like anything else that you, on your journey from childhood to now, that you would want to say to anybody listening?
Have fun in life. Create joy and just bring more joy. That's what I would say.
Bring more joy, just how?
Wake up with it, create it, talk to your neighbor, talk to say hi to people in the store, like connect with people. Like, I think being a hairdresser for as long as I've been, I got into a routine of just like coming in, but it's like, how can you connect with people and like just be everyone's friend, right? And just, it brings you to be more friends with yourself, right? And so, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, the world needs more friends right now, because the world has turned into a very self-driven, selfish place.
Yeah.
Look out for your fellow man, fellow neighbors.
And be a friend. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed.
All right. Well, thanks
Thanks
for being here. Thanks for letting me cut your hair.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time.
Thank you.
Okay.